Welcome to the Ask AI channel. Please click the subscribe button so you get all the new episodes. Evolutionary theory in social context. Introduction to social Darwinism. Social Darwinism is a social theory that emerged in the late 19th century, applying the principles of Darwinian evolution to social, political, and economic issues. It is based on the concept of survival of the fittest as observed by Charles Darwin in Nature. The central idea of social Darwinism is that human groups and races are subject to the same laws of natural selection as seen in plants and animals. According to this theory, the weak are diminished and their cultures delimited, while the strong grow in power and cultural influence. Social Darwinists believe that the strong should see their wealth and power increase, while the weak should see their wealth and power decrease. The definitions of weak and strong can vary among social Darwinists, and they also differ on the precise mechanisms that reward strength and punish weakness. Many view stress competition between individuals in laissez-faire capitalism, while others, emphasizing struggle between national or racial groups, support eugenics and/or fascism. Some interpretations of social Darwinism have been used to justify ideologies such as eugenics, nationalism, fascism, or socialism. It's important to note that some groups, including creationists such as William Jennings Bryan, argued that social Darwinism is a logical consequence of Darwinism. However, academics such as Steven Pinker have argued that this is a fallacy of appeal to nature. Social Darwinism in politics. Imperialism. Discussion on how social Darwinism was used to justify colonialism and expansion. The influence of social Darwinism extended into the realm of politics, providing justifications for imperialism and nationalist ideologies. Advocates contended that the expansion of empires and the assertion of national dominance were essential for the survival and progress of the fittest nations. This slide explores how social Darwinist ideas shaped geopolitical strategies and fueled colonial ambitions. Social Darwinism, a sociological theory popular in the late 19th century, merged Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection and Herbert Spencer's sociological theories to justify imperialism, racism, and laissez-faire social and economic policies. It was used to argue that individuals and groups, just like plants and animals, competed with one another for success in life. Social Darwinists argued that the individuals or groups of individuals at the top of social, economic, or political hierarchies belonged there, as they had competed against others and had proven themselves best adapted. They used this assertion to justify the status quo by claiming that any social or political intervention that weakened the existing hierarchy would undermine the natural order. Social Darwinism was the product of late 19th century economic and political expansion. As the European and American upper class sought to extend its economic and political power, it employed scientific explanations to justify the increasingly obvious gap between rich and poor. In the context of imperialism and colonialism, social Darwinism was used to justify the domination and subjugation of weaker races and cultures by superior races and cultures. The theory was used to rationalize the colonization of indigenous peoples, arguing that it was a natural and inevitable consequence of the survival of the fittest. Herbert Spencer, a key figure in the development of social Darwinism, applied the idea of survival of the fittest to so-called laissez-faire or unrestrained capitalism during the Industrial Revolution. He opposed any laws that helped workers, the poor, and those he deemed genetically weak. Such laws, he argued, would go against the evolution of civilization by delaying the extinction of the unfit. In conclusion, social Darwinism played a significant role in justifying imperialism, colonialism, and economic expansion in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. However, its scientific claims were largely discredited by the end of the Second World War. Nationalism. The link between social Darwinist ideas and the rise of nationalist ideologies. Social Darwinism, a set of ideologies that emerged in the late 1800s, was used to justify certain political, social, or economic views. It was largely defined by scholars in Western Europe and North America in the 1870s. Social Darwinists believe in survival of the fittest, the idea that certain people become powerful in society because they are innately better. In the context of nationalism, social Darwinism was used to justify the belief that certain nations or races were superior to others. This belief was often used to justify policies of expansion, imperialism, and colonialism. The theory was used to rationalize the colonization of indigenous peoples, arguing that it was a natural and inevitable consequence of the survival of the fittest. Social Darwinism became the dominant ideology in a period that saw the establishment of a racial caste system in the South, the completion of Indian removal in the West, the shift from continental expansion to international imperialism in the war with Spain, and the rise of organized opposition to immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe in the Northeast, and from Asia, especially China, in the West. However, it's important to note that social Darwinism declined in popularity following the First World War, and its purportedly scientific claims were largely discredited by the end of the Second World War. This was partially due to its association with Nazism and a growing scientific consensus that eugenics and scientific racism were groundless. Exploration of moral and ethical criticisms of social Darwinism. Social Darwinism, a theory derived from Charles Darwin's concept of natural selection, has been subject to several ethical criticisms. 1. Misinterpretation of evolution. It's a common criticism that social Darwinism misunderstands the entire theory of evolution and the meaning of fitness. This misunderstanding is often exploited to fulfill specific political agendas. 2. Oversimplification of societal development. Critics argue that social Darwinism oversimplifies the complex factors that contribute to societal development. They contend that social progress is influenced by a multitude of interrelated factors, including culture, politics, economics, and historical circumstances. 3. Justification of inequality and discrimination. Social Darwinism can lead to societal inequalities and injustices, as it justifies the marginalization and exploitation of weaker individuals and groups. 4. Unethical practices. Social Darwinism has been largely discredited because it was used to justify unethical practices such as involuntary sterilizations, eugenics, and Nazi racism. 5. Undermining compassion and empathy. The theory can undermine principles of compassion, empathy, equality, and human rights. 6. Ignoring circumstances beyond control. Critics question what happens to the worst-off individuals who are in that state due to no fault of their own. What happens to the individuals who are prevented from attaining a proper level of fitness due to birth defects? Some people believe it is immoral to allow these people to fail. 7. Promotion of competition over morality. The goal of social Darwinism was to enhance competition whether between social classes or between nations. In this sense, it was the opposite of morality. These criticisms highlight the ethical concerns associated with social Darwinism and its potential implications on society. Scientific validity. Social Darwinism, despite its name, is not a scientifically validated theory. Here are some reasons why it lacks scientific validity. 1. Misinterpretation of Darwin's work. Social Darwinism is often criticized for being a flawed interpretation of Charles Darwin's work. Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection applies to biological organisms, not to societies or individuals within those societies. 2. Lack of empirical evidence. The theory lacks empirical evidence to support its claims. It often oversimplifies complex social phenomena and ignores the influence of non-biological factors such as culture, history, and social structures. 3. Pseudoscientific racism. Social Darwinism has been used to rationalize imperialism, colonialism, racism, and poverty. The beliefs associated with social Darwinism were discredited during the 20th century, as the increasing knowledge of biological, social, and cultural phenomena does not support its basic tenets. 4. Invalid concept of human races. The concept of human races used in social Darwinism is scientifically invalid. Modern genetics and anthropology have shown that there is more genetic diversity within so-called races than between them. 5. Misuse of the concept of survival of the fittest. The phrase survival of the fittest, often associated with social Darwinism, is a misinterpretation of Darwin's work. In biology, fitness refers to an organism's ability to survive and reproduce, not to any perceived superiority or inferiority. 6. Association with discredited practices. Social Darwinism's purportedly scientific claims were largely discredited by the end of the Second World War, partially due to its association with Nazism and a growing scientific consensus that eugenics and scientific racism were groundless. In conclusion, social Darwinism is not considered a valid scientific theory due to its misinterpretation of Darwin's work, lack of empirical evidence, and association with discredited practices and beliefs. Legacy and impact. Examining the enduring influence of social Darwinism in shaping societal attitude. 1. Justification of discriminatory practices. The greatest impact of social Darwinism was its justification of discriminatory practices and policies against marginalized groups. The idea that some races, ethnicities, and individuals were biologically superior to others led to the belief that those deemed inferior were unworthy of social and economic support. 2. Influence on imperialism and racism. Social Darwinism has been used to rationalize imperialism, racism, eugenics, and social inequality at various times over the past century and a half. 3. Impact on economic policies. Many views of social Darwinism stress competition between individuals in laissez-faire capitalism. This has influenced economic policies and attitudes towards wealth distribution, with the belief that the strong should see their wealth increase while the weak should see their wealth decrease. 4. Influence on political ideologies. Some political ideologies, such as fascism, have been influenced by social Darwinism. The theory provided a scientific explanation and social justification of racial inequality and cultural exploitation. 5. Enduring stereotypes and prejudices. The legacy of social Darwinism can still be seen in enduring stereotypes and prejudices. Despite its decline and discrediting, references to social Darwinism since then have usually been pejorative. 6. Misconceptions about Darwinism. Some groups, including creationists such as William Jennings Bryan, argued that social Darwinism is a logical consequence of Darwinism. Academics such as Steven Pinker have argued that this is a fallacy of appeal to nature. In conclusion, while social Darwinism as a theory has been largely discredited, its influence can still be seen in certain societal attitudes and policies. Conclusion. Social Darwinism, a theory that sought to apply the principles of Darwinian evolution to human societies, has been largely discredited due to its flawed interpretation of Darwin's work, lack of empirical evidence, and association with unethical practices and beliefs. Despite this, its influence can still be seen in certain societal attitudes and policies, particularly those related to economic inequality, imperialism, and racism. The theory's enduring legacy serves as a reminder of the dangers of misapplying scientific concepts to complex social phenomena. It underscores the importance of rigorous scientific scrutiny and ethical considerations in the development and application of social theories. Thank you for your time. Please hit that subscribe button and enjoy more compelling stories from the Centered Canuck. See you next time.